In this video, I'm going to show you another photo of my second great-grandmother, Caroline Bedloe. I used her in my last video on video restoration, and in that photo she was quite elderly. This photo is a photo with her and my second great-grandfather, William Harvey, taken in 1873 in England. It's their wedding photo. What makes this one different than the last one is not just the earlier photo date, but it's in the worst shape of any photo that I've used so far. Hey, but why make this easy, right? I've already duplicated the background layer, and now I'm going to rename it, and as usual, I'll just rename it to working. Okay, now that I've renamed it, the next thing I'm going to need to do is crop it, because notice around the edges we've got a place where obviously it wasn't straight on the scanner, so we're going to need to get rid of that. And so the first thing I'll do is just to cut it off right there. And then, so I don't have to worry about this down here, I'll just move it up above whatever that was, and I don't know that. Now I want to be careful up here because I really don't want to cut off his hat. If you look over here on the right hand side, there is something that looks like a shadow. I really don't know, but I don't want it, so I'm going to get rid of that too. So now that we're there, we can press enter, and that is our cropped photo. Now, notice that there's a lot of stuff on here that looks like dirt. It may be dirt. I don't know if it's dirt or not. But we need to try to clean some of this stuff up as much as we can. And this is where the noise filter comes in. So I'm going to go up here and go to Filters, and Noise, and Denoise. I don't know if that's a real word or not, but apparently. Now notice when I hit the denoise, it already cleaned up some of that stuff in the background. The reason that you want to do this instead of using the inpainting tool is that with all that mess in there, it's hard to find a good clean border that you can use in order for the inpainting tool to understand that it needs to get rid of some of that stuff around it. So we need to get rid of some of the busyness or the noise around it to make things a little bit easier, because we are going to be using the inpainting brush tool later on. Now notice that now we have the denoise panel, and it opens up with a bunch of sliders. So all you have to do here is to fiddle with the sliders until you get the effect that you want. Now, this is going to be a trade-off, and you can see that because if you move this luminous slider back, a lot of that noise is going to come back. So along with clarity, or making this clearer, you're going to get a lot of this stuff back that you were trying to get rid of anyway. On this one, I was a little bit aggressive. I've done this quite a few times, and I've gotten different results, to tell you the truth, but we're going to be moving this around. I'm going to be moving this around, and see, I don't want clear to be that clear, so I'll move this back here. Luminance contribution. And so we've gotten rid of a lot of this. We still have the dirt there. We have dirt down here. But if we were to use the inpainting brush tool, we could just paint over this, and it would take the pixels from the surrounding area that we like and get rid of that blob right there. Okay, so I'm going to take a chance and say apply, and that's what I have right now. And now what I'm going to do is use the inpainting brush tool to try and clean this up a little bit. I'm back. Okay, I cleaned up a bunch of stuff on here that I wanted to get rid of. Probably later I would try to, after analyzing the rest of this, I'll probably try to get rid of more of this. The big problem to me is her dress, because her dress is white, but in the original photo, when I did a close-up, I found that it had some pattern in it. So, but it's been so long, I wasn't able to get a lot of the pattern out. So what I'm trying to do is to get rid of most of this stuff as I can. But I want to be painting in a downward stroke or an upward stroke, making sure that I get a sample of the lighter area and just painting up, because the dress actually has a band around here that kind of got lost in time, I guess. So this is where I am. And now we're going to move over to the tone mapping persona. So here we are in the tone mapping persona. Oh, and that looks just lovely. And because it really doesn't look lovely, I've decided, after trying to decide between two of these, this and, well, first I went back to high contrast black and white, but the high contrast black and white brings back a lot of our artifacts, or what I call the dirt, in this picture, and I really don't want that. Plus, we're going to be getting rid of the sepia color anyway, so what difference does it make? I'm just over here to try and get some clarity on it, so I'm going to choose Cool, and then I'm going to go over here into the Adjustments window, and in the Adjustments window, I'm going to move Tone Compression all the way to 0 and make sure that my local contrast is moved all the way to 0. And actually, this stuff in the dress looks a little bit better, because I'm trying to keep in mind, if I remove too much of this, it's going to look really fake. It's going to look white with no folds, and the reality is that's not what the dress is. It's got folds in it. Okay, so now that we've got the compression and local contrast turned down to 0, I'm going to go down here and click Detail Refinement. And on the Detail Refinement, all I'm going to do is to adjust the radius and the amount until I get the kind of detail I want in their faces without showing too much of the noise that we got rid of. So we'll adjust. And what I'm doing is basically I'm looking at her face to see this, and then once I look at her face and get her face the way I want it, then I'm looking around and say, okay, did too much of that dirty stuff come back? And maybe I can have something this clear, and we can worry about that later. Okay, so once I've adjusted my sliders and I got to where I want it to be right now, I will click Apply, and we're back here into the photo persona. Now take a look at the difference between this and this. So that's quite a bit of difference. So we've gotten rid of most of that junk in there. Now we're going to do an adjustment, or maybe 2, maybe 3, but whatever. First, we're going to go to Adjustments, and we're going to go up here to Levels. In Levels, we're going to start getting rid of this sepia color. So this was in my last video. So if you saw my last video on this, I do understand that I've had a video and 2 shorties that have dropped already. But anyway, this is, I've done this before. So we're going to choose red and move the black level to where it is bumping up against that part of the histogram, and the white level to where it's bumping up to that part of the histogram. And then we're going to repeat that for the green. And lastly, the blue. So all 3 channels, we're going to be making these adjustments. So there we are. And we're starting to get some dirt back. So at the end, we are going to be making, or I'm going to try to make some adjustments. I've done this like 3 or 4 times in practice, and each time it's turned out completely different. So I will be interested to see how it turns out this time. Now, we want to get rid of the rest of the color. So we're going to be clicking on Adjustments again and going up to HSL and turn the saturation all the way down to the left. And that will get rid of the rest of the color in our photo, which is what we want. Now we can X out of that. Okay, now the question is, how much of this do we want to do a brightness and contrast and try to adjust it, or do we want to try going to the inpainting tool or using the clone tool? I have used the clone tool. I used the clone tool on this one just to get his sideburn back. He had a missing sideburn, so I used the clone tool for that one. I have not done a video on that, mainly because the clone tool is kind of wonky, so maybe I just need more practice. But let's go and try another adjustment. Let's try going to brightness and contrast and see what happens. So we're here in brightness and contrast, and let's just adjust this down. I really like it when the brightness is turned down, but when I do that, look at these little white dots on her face. That is not attractive. So I want to turn the brightness up until I get rid of those things. And then here you've got contrast, to where you can alter the contrast and give this a little bit more contrast. So let's take a look and see what it looked like before I fiddle with the sliders. You know what? It's really not that much difference, because I really don't want those white spots there, so I'm going to keep the brightness here. If you turn it up too much, the whole thing just disappears. So I don't want those bright spots there. And contrast. Yeah, but I want the contrast in her face. So I might just want to leave it the way it was before. The first one I did, I really needed to use this, and this time I don't need it. So we will just reset that, and we'll go back out. Now, if you still think there's too much noise in this, there's too much of this stuff, and you're not willing, or you want to try to avoid having to use the paintbrush tool, the inpainting brush tool too much to get rid of it, then you can always do another denoise, a noise adjustment. Now remember, when you do this, we've already put these adjustments in there, so you want to make sure that you click on the appropriate layer to do that. So you need to click on the working layer, and we're going to go back up to filters and go to noise and see what it looks like when we denoise it again. Okay, it's denoised some of it automatically, but this looks really weird. And the reason it looks really weird, I like the fact there's no more dirt in it, but they almost look like plastic dolls. So I'm not liking that too much. So I think I might want to move this down a little. Maybe move the detail up a little. Maybe you put the contribution down a little and get to where we really get rid of as much of this as possible without making their faces, well, go away. And I would really like a little bit more. Let me see. Okay, so I want it up enough to where this I don't want. Okay, so I'm going to go up like that. And I think we're going to leave it there and then take a chance that we can get rid of some of this other stuff using the inpainting brush tool. And I'm going to go ahead and apply this, just like that. Okay, so now we can compare what we have now with what we started with. And to do that, I am going to group these. into one thing. So we can just turn off one button. So we turn off this. There's the original one. We turn this back on, and that's the other one. Okay, and I was working on this a little bit before. Here's what I had been working on previously. So this is what this one looks like. Apparently I decided that I wanted to leave a little bit more in there. And so I have this one. And then I have the one that I'm working on for the future. So this one I've been working on for actually a couple of days. And I don't consider this nearly done. I'm still trying to clean it up, and I'm trying to figure out what to do with with some more of this stuff. But this one, I almost think he's a little bit too blurry. Well, maybe he's too blurry in there. Okay, so this is what I came up with when I did this on video. So hopefully this will give you some ideas on how you can use the noise filter in order to get rid of a lot of extraneous noise in your old pictures before you go to the inpainting tool to get rid of the rest of it. Actually, I prefer the noise filter as the heavy cleanup on your damaged photos. So, try it out, and remember to like and subscribe and ring that notification bell so you can be notified when my next video drops.